trapped in his suit. It's coming up through the neck holes. So welcome to sunny, rainy, haily, snowy, sleety, sludgy, sloppy, rainbowy Rowrah for round 4 of the Club 100 Super Lightweights North. Yeah, so this place is crazy. Seems to have a weather system all of its own. It's the only place I've ever been to in the UK or anywhere that has all 4 seasons in one day. We experienced everything up there. But this is also the round that I was looking forward to the most, just for the aesthetic side of it. The fact that I knew I could climb up onto the hills and get some great footage of the race and so on. So it's again the same format as previous rounds. We'll have a practice, we'll have a qualifier, a pre-final and a final. We're about to go out for the practice rounds. This again is going to be Oscar's very first time on this track. Also, he hasn't rode a Rotax kart since Wilton Mill back in June. So he's been a few months out of the karts and never on this track. We arrived the previous day for the testing. We got there before anybody else did to try and get our name onto the list just to see if we could sneak in. But unfortunately, everybody turned up. So we had to wait until the very last minute to find out that we couldn't get any testing done the previous day. So what you're about to see is Oscar's very first time on this track, and as I said, having not been in his karts for a few months now, I think he did great. Again, he was down near the bottom, to start with on the lap times, but throughout the day he improved, as he does, as you're going to see, and there is a personal best coming up. I'll leave it at that for now. Enjoy. So as you can see here, Oscar did manage to secure the last position in the practice, but that's not important. What we're looking at is self-improvement. We're essentially challenging ourselves. So as I've said in previous rounds, we'll look now at the leader in this race. He was 3.5 seconds ahead of Oscar. That's the challenge, is to close that gap in the qualifier and then in the pre and the main final. And obviously the qualifiers coming up next. It'd be amazing if we could make the A final, but to finish in the top 50% with so little experience, it's nearly an impossible task. However, what I like to think is, if you look at the times that we've got after the qualifier, that will have been 2 11-minute sessions on track. That's the times we would have been starting this race event in for practice today, if we'd managed to do the 2 practice sessions the previous day. So we can look at things like that and then work out where we really would be if we'd managed to get practice booked in. This is Oscar's practice, and I've just ran in the pits and all up the hill, knackered. He is P17. I believe that is him just there in his wetsuit. I don't know if I can be heard because it is incredibly windy and I'm incredibly out of breath. Alright, well done. Did you get the camera?
Yeah, awesome.
I know you got the ballast. Oh, it's still going. Oh, okay. Cheers. Still recording? Okay, you? There we go. Qualifying. Hey? We crossed the line in P19, but one of the racers behind us picked us and knocked us down to P20. So P20 out of 24, not too bad. It's an improvement on the practice session, but if you look at the data here, this was actually a brilliant run from Oscar. In the practice session, he was 3.5 seconds off the leader, which was Kai Newman. In this session, he's 1.6 seconds off the leader. So that is just an absolutely astonishing, improvement of 1.9 seconds gained. The races that he was in amongst as well, considering a large chunk of this quali he spent in around P14, 15, 16, he was mixing it with Harvey Preen, Leo Belamenko, Andrea Mastita, Kai Timmins, Kai Newman. Them are serious top-end competitors in Club 100. So for Oscar to be in the mix with those in quali, when everybody's trying to get the fastest lap times, is absolutely exceptional. Really, really proud of him. Fantastic job.
Oh yeah, it is, yeah. Hey! Well done, dude.
Grid's a bit published online, you can check those out.
This is for anybody who doesn't understand exactly how the Club 100 system works. Oscar is a junior super lightweight. There's also another category called lightweights. So the differences are, to be in the super lightweight category with all your race gear on, you need to weigh a minimum of 60 kilos. And to be in the lightweight category with all your race gear on, you need to weigh a minimum of 70 kilos. In Oscar's super lightweight category, there are 50 racers competing, and they've been broke down into two groups, which is Group A and Group B, and Oscar's in Group B. On the screen now are the results from qualifying for Group A. If Oscar was in this group with his 57.3 second lap time, that would have placed him P10, just behind Jamie Crampton. So what this means is Oscar is starting P7 of 28 in the B final, which looks very impressive considering he finished P20 in his group, which is why I'm highlighting this, but he would have been a lot higher up the grid if he was in the other group.
Right then, I have no idea if my voice is coming out in this recording. It's exceptionally windy up here at Rowrah. Oscar's about to come out now for the pre-B final. He's starting in P7. This will be a rolling start. Just hoping that weather up there holds off. Still broke away, so another lap.
So the kart there behind Oscar in the pink helmet had a much better exit and got the inside line. Oscar hit the brakes, which caused him to slow, which allowed the kart behind to come fractionally alongside him and make some contact there. Now if we go back to the other kart passing him, you'll see right there that Oscar only notices that kart when it's 50% alongside him. So there was no chance of him seeing the other driver trying to get past when they were around about 20%, as you can see there as the contact happened. For some unknown reason now, Oscar decides to switch to the right here and tries to follow the racing line. He loses a shit ton of positions and almost ends up in a massive crash with the kart in front of him being squeezed and the front end going up into the air. This was a close one.
You gotta get the inside of this. That's to get the inside.
Yep, we've just been involved in a big crash. What's not so easy to see here in this footage is that just on the apex here, a lot of water off that puddle on the right there has been washed up onto the track, caused the karts to lose traction, and everybody just piled up and spun into each other. Looking down on this, it wasn't easy. You know, I've seen a few crashes on YouTube, for example, and none of them are easy viewing as a parent. You know, we're all worried. We all want our children to come back off track, you know, in one piece and healthy. So it's never easy seeing a situation like this. You'll hear that from my reaction track side. But I mean, luckily Oscar was okay. I believe everybody else was fine. There was one boy that was taken off as a precaution, as you can see on the screen now in this ambulance. But I believe he was perfectly okay in the end. It didn't look nice at the time. He was holding his chest and appeared to be in quite some pain as he moved away from his cart. He actually came out of the cart. Oscar's cart went sideways into his cart, which crushed him essentially between another cart. So the reason I'm including all this footage, it's not something I probably would include, but we've had a lot of drivers approach us after this, asking for me to include the footage because I was the only person on the day braving the conditions and stood up on the hill. So I'm the only person that's got the shots of what actually happened. I missed the front end of the pile up, so I didn't see who the first person was and who sprayed the water up onto the track, etc. But I'll include everything I've got here. I've also had some different angles sent in to me, so I'll include all them too. I'll do the best I can there to review this for you.
Look up at me, mate. Are you okay? Look up at me. You're right. Oh my god. Oh my god. I know you're okay. I believe you're okay. That's a bad one. Oh god. Give me a thumbs, dude. Give me a thumbs. Yeah, thank you. Oh my god. That's not what we want to say.
So as the drivers are coming up the hill here, you can see there's no yellow flags yet being waved as the marshals haven't had a chance to respond to what's just happening ahead. So the drivers are also blindsided, they can't see over the brow of the hill, so they have no chance to react to what's coming up. And then as they come across this right hand curb here, you can see somebody's gone through the puddle there and just lifted all the water up onto the track. So as soon as the carts go over that, they just completely lose traction. And there's only one way they're going then, which is into the pile up into the back of each other. I just want to give some much deserved praise here as well to the marshals. I think at times they don't get it. This guy here risks injury himself running through a live lane of traffic to get to the injured boy as quickly as he can. You know, if that was Oscar that's injured, that's what you want to see. You want to see the marshals getting to them as fast as possible to help. So yeah, full credit goes out to this guy here, or to the Club 100 staff. I think they've done an absolutely brilliant job all throughout the event, the rounds that we've been involved in this year. They've been absolutely exceptional. The drivers now are just going to pull up here and await a restart. The restart, I believe, is in the positioning that the drivers were last in when they crossed the start-finish line before the accident happened.
You okay?
Yeah, you.
What?
You.
Yeah.
Here we go again. In a minute. I think you're at P15, 15, 16ish. That was a super frustrating pre-final. I'm glad that that one's over and in the bag now. And to be honest, Oscar only really has himself to blame there for dropping 10 positions in the end. It was essentially following the racing line through hairpins. When he got 5, 6, 7, 8 carts close in behind him, you leave the inside open there and you're asking for trouble. You're never going to come out on top. So that's something that we'll work on before we go to Warden Law to make sure he tightens up on that area. However, if you look at the lap times, bar Kai Newman, who seemed to be in a league of his own, he was 6 seconds ahead of anybody else. Then Oscar was within 1 second of the other fastest driver. So that shows that he was carrying some really good pace out there. He managed a 54.0 second lap, which is his fastest of the day so far. And had he defended more on the hairpins and so on, I think he could have quite comfortably finished top 10. And that also may have gave him a chance of staying ahead of the crash. You don't know. It's just the way the racing goes sometimes. So I have said to him, the further up the field you are, the less likely you are to be involved in a crash because there's less people in front of you to crash. So we'll learn from this and we'll move on to the final now.
Do that again. The phone cover's just flapping everywhere. Ah. Hey!
The weather was horrific and I was the only parent again, braving it, standing up on top of the hill. This footage was actually taken just after the B final had finished, but I'm including it just to show you the conditions up there and how quickly they changed. And I'm not exaggerating when I say I struggled to film the B final just to keep the phone pointing in the right direction. It was an absolute nightmare. Right, B final.
When it comes down to
Stay safe. Come off and then just that's the number one, okay? Nice fit, enjoy it, alright, yeah? See you on the other side.
On the hill, can barely move. Here we go. Super windy. There he is. In front of him is Ewan Platt. We raced against Ewan Platt at Liverpool in the BOKC Regional Finals last year. 3 ahead of him is Paige Martin, who looks just like him, so no doubt I'm going to end up filming her, although Oscar's got waterproofing on, which he might need. We'll see. Oh. Really struggling to keep my camera still. Wind is it's moving me. No, he just held on. It's close.
This was a close one. The driver 2 behind Oscar now in the white helmet absolutely sends it here up the inside. Just clips the back of Oscar's kart. Any more contact than that and I think he'd have spun out. That would have been the end of the event. I do think Oscar should have sealed that overtake then. That was a close one. That ain't no stone, that's half the bloody cliff. Hang on a minute, isn't that due to land in about 2030?
We have hail. It is hailing. Very careful out there, mate. You're going to pick up lots of positions and stay on the track. Oh yeah, it's really bad. I don't know if the camera can catch this. Oh yeah.
that was close. That was a good attempt there from Oscar. Good setup here on the way through the final turn to try and steal a position on the finish line. He'll get that next time.
Look at that. It's really beautiful. Great stuff, dude. I don't know where you finished yet, but you definitely made positions. Get back to you then.
So Oscar crosses the line in P10, but he was promoted afterwards up to P9 due to a 2-position penalty there for Kai Timmins. So looking at the positives, Oscar's within 0.6 seconds of the race winner. He's also within 0.9 seconds of the fastest lap set by Ollie down there in P26. And if we consider he's again had no practice day, etc., he's never raced this track before, he's had 3 months out from Rotax karting, that's fantastic. You know, he's on pace, he's right in the middle of the pack on the lap times, as pretty much the whole grid, almost entirely. We're in the 59-second mark. Again, Oscar's picked up no penalties, he hasn't received a single penalty in the Club 100 series so far. We've just received an email, all the racers will have had one, showing the penalty points that have been applied so far. I think it was 13 out of 52 junior super lightweights that haven't had a penalty, and Oscar's one of them. So going forwards, of course, we've still got Warden Law to come on October 26th, but we've received some financial support which is going to allow us, if we can secure it, to compete in all 15 rounds of Club 100. That's the 7 northern rounds for next season and the 8 southern rounds. If that happens, we'll also be booking up all the test days, or at least the ones we can make, as we're now made aware that the test days for the northern rounds are going to be on the Fridays with the race days on the Saturdays. That could cause issues with having to leave school and do a 4-hour drive, for example, for a test day. But if we can secure them all in as many test days as possible and get Oscar racing a lot more consistently, maybe fortnightly or at least once a month, then we're pretty sure with that he's going to be making A finals and pushing his way up the grid further. So we're super excited for next season, and if all goes to plan, Benjamin Hamilton, we're coming for you.
Chapped in his suit, he's coming up through the neck holes.